What is up, diehards? Wes Monell and Joey Balistreri in the building for AWOL Sports. Today, we got our fantasy Pick-6 questions for you. I'm going to ask Joey 3 questions. He's coming right back at me with 3 of his own. First, before we hit those, I'd like to bring up a stat I came across. If you've been listening, it's actually been a stat I've been tracking. There's only been 2 teams through a month of action that have scored in every single quarter so far. One of them, the Baltimore Ravens. The other happens to be Joey's favorite team, the Green Bay Packers.
Go Pack, go.
Astronomical in the second quarter, 56 points in the second quarter so far, 45 in the third. Those are their 2 highest scoring quarters, Joey. They're balling out of control. Aaron Rodgers kind of has a carousel going around him, at least out wide. How does it feel to hear the pack scoring every quarter, just dominating, balling out of control?
Well, so for me, first off, the fact that you said the Baltimore Ravens are the other team. Granted, it's Lamar Jackson, it's the 2019 MVP, but it's like the Baltimore Ravens haven't been. I in my opinion, they've been furthermore exciting defensively than they have offensively. Marlon Humphrey just got a huge payout, but the fact that the Baltimore Ravens are the other team that has done that is surprising within its own. But for the Packers, I said going into the season, do not be surprised if Aaron Rodgers is either second to whomever the MVP is or is the MVP, because when Aaron Rodgers has a fire lit under his ass and you draft Jordan Love in the first round instead of, you could have gotten X amount of people, Justin Jefferson, you could have gotten all these people as legit weapons when you knew going into the season that Devontae Adams and maybe Allen Lazard are the 2 key guys to that offense besides Aaron Jones when it comes to the receiving end. I knew he was going to be on fire. And to be completely honest with you, this last Monday really proved that they are a team that doesn't need superstars in order to be completely competitive. So, granted, it was against Atlanta, but still, I'm very, very excited this year to be a Packer fan.
Hell yeah, man. Things are rolling right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Good luck moving forward. But yeah, A-Rod is in that MVP conversation. He's not a stranger to it. It's pretty cool because I felt like, as a non-Packers fan, I felt like one of the very few that was telling the other non-Packers fans Aaron Rodgers was not a liability last season, not the problem, not declining. Now they're finally seeing it for themselves. I know you and some other Pack fans would have said, I told you so. I would like to include myself in that category. That's what I saw. I can't believe they kept doubting that bad man. There's something about people wanting to push out players in their 30s too quick. Aaron
Right.
Aaron's not one of those guys you can push out, man. He's an all-time talent, future Hall of Famer.
Right.
Man,
And you know what? Just to circle back to it too is, I believe a lot of credit has to be given to LaFleur, because personally for me, when I knew he was going to be the head coach, I said, okay, this is going to be one of 2 things. You're either going to have a new coach that's going to come in and is going to try to do this whole, young gun, like let's reinvigorate what offense means. And, right off the bat, you're going to see him and Rodgers having this weird kind of ego trip, like inferiority complex kind of thing going on. And he went 12-4 or 13-3 actually in his first season as a coach. I think the best 16 games a head coach has ever gone, even better than for the Packers, I should say, even better than Vince Lombardi. So, major props to him. We used to be a heavily defensive side of the ball team, and still are. But man, that offense is on fire. Aaron Jones looks good this year, real good. And you know what? Even give a lot of credit to the backup guys in the backfield. You know, Jamal Williams looks pretty dang good. Whatever he was doing in his offseason, he looks good this season. So I'm stoked, man. I really, really am stoked.
Hey, there's 53 guys that agree with you about Jamal Williams, and that's the Atlanta Falcons team.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Which,
Yikes.
hey, I'm a huge Aaron Jones fan. I think he's elite. I had him ranked higher than Dalvin Cook when I did my divisional rankings in the preseason. I had him as the best NFC North running back. That hasn't changed. I just wish I didn't stray away from him in fantasy football because I was a little concerned. They draft AJ Dillon. Jamal Williams was there, carried over from last year. Devontae Adams is the featured guy in that offense. So I was just worried about the situation. So far, Aaron Jones is balling, man, which it kind of gradually takes us to our first question. Who is a player that you targeted but didn't wind up drafting in any of your leagues?
You know what's so funny is appropriately so 100% there's for me it's one of two guys, and it's something that going into the season, on the off season, I said these two guys I want because I know they're going to have a blowout year. You know, whatever whatever projections that everyone, whatever little bubble people put them in there, RB1, RB2, like whatever, they're going to skyrocket past it. And number one for sure is Aaron Jones. I knew, especially since last season, he was sometimes in some mock drafts I was seeing that he was going beginning of round 3, which I thought he was going to be somewhere right in that 2-4, 2-5, 2-6 maybe. So he was highly getting undervalued in a lot of ways, and we see that production has not changed from last year, because what are the two things that all fantasy managers always want to see is availability and opportunity, and that guy always gets opportunity and he's always available. Granted, there's some games he's been hobbled with and missed out on, but that guy is balling, and LaFleur loves to feed him. And look at what happened on Monday. He didn't have much, Aaron Rodgers didn't have many people to throw it to. And the first drive, they go marching down the field, and ends up Aaron Jones eating a lot on that drive. So that's for sure my number one. And for sure my number 2 will have to be Calvin Ridley. I knew going into this season that Calvin Ridley 100% was going to be somebody that I knew was going to reach that next step. I think this is his 4th year, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe 3, but I can double check.
So it's at least young enough to where he's given himself. I mean, he had a stellar first season as a rookie. I think he had almost double-digit touchdowns, while Julio Jones was on the other side of the field. So we knew he had the upside in fantasy terms for touchdowns, but there was just something about it that it's just like the Roddy White days with Julio. Like, we knew that this Julio Jones guy from the draft looks great, everything, but he's not going to replace the number 1 guy in Atlanta. And he ends up being one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. Not saying the comparison that Calvin Ridley is going to have or do is going to be at that caliber of him being at the greatest wide receiver of all time or in the conversation of it, but it's still the fact that he's going to have to make that jump. Julio is going to have to retire sometime. Matt Ryan is going to have to trust him. And look what he did the first 3. I mean, granted that goose egg scares the living shit out of me, but those first 3 games are as elite as you want a wide receiver to be. And that's something that I wanted to draft. I wanted to draft a guy who was going, let me check he was drafted in the 5th round, top of the 5th round in my league. I knew a guy with stupendous amounts of upside was going to be going that late in rounds as what people are perceiving as a wide receiver 2 or 3. Oh, I'm all money for it. And unfortunately, I didn't get him, but I ended up trading for him and it worked out pretty well.
Pretty smooth, man. Nice. Hey, that's pretty nice. I don't think I'll wind up with my guy. I could have sworn in every league it would have been a lock that I draft Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I thought coming in, he would quickly develop a connection with Tom Brady. Dude, this is the best downfield threat since Randy Moss for TB12. Randall that year, well, in the first year, back in 07, 1,400 yards and 23 TDs, man. We've seen Evans. He's already eclipsed the 1,500-yard mark in his career. He's reached a dozen scores twice in his career, including last year with Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Last year also, TB12. I didn't think he was a liability. Another quarterback, kind of like Rodgers that we just touched on. TB12, top 10 in air yards with the Patriots. You can't name a target that went downfield for them. It wasn't Julian Edelman. So then you look at Bruce Arians, who had Evans heavily targeted with Jameis Winston before they signed the future Hall of Famer. In 3 less games last season, Evans recorded 3 less catches than Godwin.
Yeah.
Look, we knew Evans was the alpha. I still think there's room for 2. It's just unfortunate. We haven't seen one healthy game for this duo in the first month. Probably won't see it this second month of October coming up either. Evans, he's already scored 5 touchdowns, scored in every game, and he has a pair of triple-digit performances. I'm pretty bummed that I didn't pull the trigger on this guy. Maybe I should have reached a little bit. I kind of value the running back position too much, perhaps, to where I missed out on Mike Evans in all my leagues. I love getting 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds.
I'm right there with you.
So that's the risk you take. And part of me thought, you know what? Godwin's going to go first in all these leagues. And he actually did. So that projection was correct, even though I thought Evans would wind up with more fantasy points when all was said and done. I kind of knew people would draft Godwin first. I'm pretty bummed. I don't think I'll wind up trading for Evans like you did with Ridley. I'm not surprised what's going on in Tampa. I actually have that team going to the NFC title game and winning it and representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So,
wow.
I thought Mike Evans was in store for a big year. We're already seeing it after the first month. I can't say I regret it though, man. I'm pretty bummed. Look, you disagreed with me about getting three running backs early. It's worked for me for forever. I'm not going to stay away from that.
I was actually saying, like, this season alone was the only time that I said, I'm no matter who drops, I will go running back. I don't care if it's gonna be Michael Thomas. I do not trust it. I mean, Chris McCaffrey's out for a while, Saquon Barkley, but it's the fact that I wanted to get running back, and maybe running back after that. But to go to your point real quick too, as well as that's what was a huge amount of conversation, especially when it came out of Tampa. Besides, is Brady going to be relevant? It's the fact that, like, it's going to be a coin flip. You don't get to get Evans and Godwin, so you have to pick. And obviously, the Evans owner is going to be way, way, way more excited than the Godwin owner. Not counting Godwin out at all. I mean, hamstring injuries are a real bitch to come back from. But it's the fact that, hey, man, if you made the right side of the coin call, you're really, really happy about it. So,
true, man. It's so tough to split hairs on draft day, and
especially those kind of thick hairs, man.
Yeah,
those are good players.
Sensational.
Yeah,
I can't wait to watch them both in the same lineup. There's room for both of them to produce at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
just like there was in the backfield for Cleveland, which
Yeah.
touches on your first question you have for me.
So the first question I have for you is going to be, will we see Kareem Hunt lead the Browns backfield this season and the next season?
It's a great question because, yeah, Nick Chubb's gone, but he's going to come back this season. He's going to return, which, you know, he gets that healthy tag. He's off the injury report. They're going to give Nick Chubb the ball. He's currently, what? He's got 5 runs of 20 plus yards. Those are big plays right there. That was leading the league going into last weekend. I have to actually go through last week's games to see if he went up from 5. But it is an interesting question though, because Chubb is elite, man. He's a baller. He's under contract for next season. But we did just see this new regime of the Browns extend Kareem Hunt the next 2 seasons. I think they'll let it play out and only make a move if they get a good offer or something for one of the backs. Chubb, his cap hit next year, if they chose to move on, would be only $2 million. But again, I don't expect that. He's under contract. He's an elite back. He's going to return later in the season, but maybe he holds out. It's something we've seen over the past 5 years with running backs. So you just don't know. He's still on his rookie deal. So that's why I think it's an interesting question, because Kareem Hunt now, not only was he involved heavily with a healthy Nick Chubb, he may even get the lion's share. I mean,
Right.
Ernest Johnson, he had a pretty good game subbing in, man.
Just a perfect person who I was going to bring up, man.
13 carries, 95 yards. And the one wrench that you can throw in here is the groin popping up on the injury report yet again, Kareem Hunt. I would assume, I think you would, and most of the diehards listening would, that Kareem Hunt would slide over into that Nick Chubb fully featured role and probably have Dearness Johnson have the Kareem Hunt role, but a little bit less of that share because, look, we've seen Hunt and Chubb, and they're both ballers. We haven't seen much of Dearness Johnson. He's got some things to prove. Good game last week. It gets tricky though. It gets tricky because he's got a groin injury. Maybe they limit him again, or maybe they keep Hunt as. It kind of sounds crazy to me, but if they keep Hunt in the role he's had, and they just simply put Ernest Johnson up in that Chubb role because of the groin, that's a real possibility. And then you check out some of the numbers. Chubb, his season high in 3 years for receptions is 36. And Hunt, he's eclipsed that twice with a career high of 53. And then you look on the ground, Chubb has always been above 5 yards per carry. And before going down last week, he was at 5.9. Kareem Hunt, not too shabby at 5.5. I do know that Chubb's elite. You know, we just talked about the big runs over 20 yards. He's had over 11 every year since he's been in the league. He's been elite. He hasn't dipped below second since he's walked through the door. He ranked first as a rookie, second last year. He was leading all running backs this year before going down. So, I mean, it's a great question, dude, because of the groin of Kareem Hunt, Chubb getting injured. And if he returns, who knows if he's 100? I mean, I don't think they'd rush that. I do think the groin is the key here. Maybe they need to give him a week off.
Yeah.
If the Ernest Johnson can carry a load for one day, you put a little bit more on Baker's shoulders. But circle that back to answer your question. I don't see, even though Kareem Hunt has one extra year on his deal than Chubb, I don't see him owning the backfield this year or next year.
What about any other backfield? Maybe another team takes a hit on cap or takes the risk. I mean, I think there's a good solid couple of teams that we can count on one hand that could really, really use a legitimate RB1, because going into this year, maybe to go on part of the last question too, is Kareem Hunt was somebody, even if I wasn't getting Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt was somebody that I knew could have that fringe RB1 upside. That keep in mind too, a lot of people are completely negating the fact that Stefanski kind of made this team look what they should have been last year. I mean, they're the number one, if I'm not mistaken, the number one running offense right now. I mean, especially, I mean, not taking anything away from the fact that Kareem Hunt, his rookie year was phenomenal. Nick Chubb has been nothing but stupendous since he's come into the league, barring injuries. But Stefanski really reinvigorated what they thought their offense should be. So, I think he should be on the Browns next year, and then maybe after that year could be up for debate where he can go. But do you see potentially him landing somewhere else?
Not the next 2 years that he's under contract. I just don't. I think
it'd be a reach.
You bring in Stefanski, you saw what he did. I mean, he gave Madison over in Minnesota 100 touches, even with Dalvin Cook. So Kareem Hunt, definitely more worthy than those 100 touches, probably between 150 and 180, even with a healthy Chubb. I think they like what they're doing. I think they want to grind the clock, pound the rock, and then use their shiny toy OBJ over the top on play action. So I think Hunt is going to stick around, and I don't think in the end that he owns his backfield, despite Chubb's injury.
Oh, I agree. It's gonna be rough with those injuries. I mean, that's one of the best, or the biggest tell about, the whole entire Cleveland backfield is going to be injuries and lingering injuries. Groin, hard to come back. And now that I thought when it happened that Chubb actually rolled his ankle, but ended up being his ankle attaching to his knee, giving him an MCL sprain. And that's real hard to come back from. So we'll end up seeing what's going to happen. So
we will, man. And hey, I do have a Cleveland Brown as part of this next question here, but I'll pose it to you first. Who is a player you were all in on, but has already given you reason after 4 weeks of football to jump ship as it pertains to fantasy football?
See, what sucks? First off, it's a fantastic question, because it's an appropriate question time too, because we are a quarter of the way into the season now. If you have a week 16 championship, 15 or 14, you're coming down to the wire of, I have to really make things happen. Meaning I gotta drop this guy, I gotta trade this guy, I gotta make any kind of moves, because I'm dwindling down here on time. For fantasy purposes, this guy was somebody that I was reaching for, in terms of, like, if it's the 6th, 7th, 8th round and this guy is still there, I have to go for him. And for me personally is going to be Deshaun Watson. So for me, and I know that may be contrary to popular belief on the standards of people voting him, he obviously is a phenomenal athlete. There's no doubting that. The guy knows how to play. The guy has been that elite quarterback that you want. I have 2 issues. And one of them is on injuries, because ever since he, I believe, tore his ACL, has not had many, if not at all, injuries at all. One, BOB's gone. That's, for Houston fans, a good thing, right? And for, the players, a good thing. But now you're going to have this massive up in the air of who's going to do it, who's going to step up, are they going to be fine? Are they going to let Watson Cook, is it going to be a run first team? Is it going to be a pass first team? And even with Bill O'Brien being there, it's come to them doing what they always do. Deshaun Watson either has a phenomenal week, which he has, or he's the most sacked quarterback in the league and squeaks out with 15 points. So, for me, Deshaun Watson for sure was somebody that I said, if he falls to me in the 6th round or the 7th round, oh man, I'm all for it. And I'm definitely glad I didn't end up getting him, because he's been struggling. That team's been struggling. It shows you how important DeAndre Hopkins is.
That's a fair point about DeAndre, who got shipped for David Johnson, 2nd-round pick. Texans only put up 20 points, 16 points, 21.3. Part of the reason Bill O'B's gone, not to go off on that tangent, but look, I get playing a tough schedule. Kansas City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and then a desperate team just like they were in
Tough.
Minnesota. That's a tough start. I don't know. It seemed like a quick plug, and it kind of looked like the defense was more of an issue, giving up 30 points in 3 of those games, and then the other game. So I don't know, man. That seems like a quick plug, but to reel it back into Deshaun Watson in fantasy, I can't view losing Bill O'Brien as a positive for Watson in fantasy football. I just can't. He's been so good in that offense, even if the whole team, look, they've been making the playoffs. Bill O'Brien was there. They made the playoffs before Deshaun Watson, through Deshaun Watson injury, and with Deshaun Watson. So, hey, they paid him to be big time. He's got some weapons that are complementary. They're not DeAndre Hopkins, but they complement each other. You got Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, even the tight end Aiken, who's showing some flashes. I'm not saying this is an all-world group. I like the speed, though. They look like they're trying to mirror the Chiefs. I'm totally with you, though. I didn't think about Deshaun Watson, but I think it's a great answer. I'd probably add him to my list as well. And someone that actually is on my list here, that Cleveland Brown player I was telling you about, kind of alluding to, Jarvis Landry, one of my favorite players in football for years. I'm a huge Landry fan. I love that he's so versatile. It's my guy. So reliable. I think he's been underrated every year in his career, pretty much. It could
especially in Miami.
Yeah, dude. Maybe Kenyon Drake's another one from Miami that's overlooked.
Yeah.
But man, it could very well be the hip injury and recovering. They say he's not right still and he's playing through it. Maybe stop playing a game or two. I don't know. But look, there's a plethora of wideouts producing in fantasy football right now that you can stream every single week that can give you the same, if not more, than Landry has been giving you. I know Chubb is on IR now. I wouldn't jump ahead of things and think that the Browns are going to pass more. They're not. They have a recipe. You said that they were first in all of football on the ground, and they are by 25 yards.
Yeah.
More than the next team, which is the Patriots. Baker Mayfield, he does rely on juice to pace the offense, or he has in the past. That's not going to change. What has changed is the volume in the passing game. I'm not going to let a passing touchdown that was awesome. He threw it to his best friend.
Yep.
Jay lefty against Dallas. It was dope. I love Jarvis. That's what I've been saying. I can't let that blind me from the facts. Hip injury, not getting the volume he's used to getting. Maybe that goes hand in hand, but this offense just wants to run the ball and occasionally play action to OBJ down the field. I don't see a lot of things pointing to keeping Jarvis Landry. In fact, I cut him this week. It kind of hurt me. I was thinking with my heart a little bit and kind of living in the past with Jarvis Landry. I mean, it's a guy that, yeah, you saw him throw that touchdown. You can give him a few handoffs here and there. just not it's just not in the cards for him, the situation. And especially in an 8-man league and 10-man league, he should not be on your roster unless you're holding on to some hope. There's so many other targets you can get. If you're in deeper leagues, 12, I'd even say that's a little bit of a stretch. 14, you might be stuck. You might have to keep him, and it is what it is. But man, it pains me to say Jarvis Landry is a guy that I am out on in fantasy football. You agree, disagree?
I'm for sure. I actually picked him up off of waivers last week. Ended up winning because of him, because he threw that touchdown. But I mean, I'm with you on he's one of those players that is special and has been special. Like I said, especially he was highly overlooked when he was in Miami for the complete shit show that was going on down there. But it seems as if I guess it just seems as if the Browns are not going to be that team that produces phenomenal wide receivers at a caliber like they used to with, Josh Gordon and stuff like that for fantasy. I mean, one of the things that has been driving me absolutely crazy is people saying, "Oh my God, OBJ, this is the time." OBJ has had a good game, and one of them came off of an 82-yard jet sweep. I mean, the guy has that upside, but if you don't have Kareem Hunt, if you don't have Nick Chubb, besides his injury, you can't really be guaranteed to have an unbelievable play, including Jarvis Landry, and it sucks. But real quick, I wanted to give you another person, and I want to see your idea about if you agree or not, because it's kind of a 1A, 1B, but the second guy I'm going to mention is someone that I'm still holding off on and praying that it's okay. But the first guy is Kenyon Drake. He's one guy that I thought, I went into the season also saying, if it's not Aaron Rodgers winning MVP, a guy who's going to be up for contention is going to be Kyler Murray. And I mean, he's for sure shown electricity on that football field. But at the same time, he's kind of shown with too many picks, all that stuff. He needs to come up with more clutch. Come on. Let's go. That I thought if he was going to play as stupendous as I think he is, which Kyler Murray's playing great, that, Kenyon Drake's going to be able to feast this season. And we're now getting word that Chase Edmonds may potentially start the next game. Granted, because of an injury to Kenyon Drake's chest, I believe, it's not looking good for Kenyon Drake. And also, the second person is DJ Moore. I drafted him in 2 out of my 3 leagues. Someone I said, Teddy Bridgewater, it's going to be great. He's had a great game this year. But the only reason why I'm saying it's kind of like I'm waiting to see with DJ Moore is the fact that his targets have been there. The best game that he had this year, I think he had 12 or 13 targets. And, I think it's rhythm that's the issue for Carolina. I mean, obviously their defense started off on a horrible foot. And it's kind of coming to its own. But I think rhythm in terms of offense, losing CMC, having Teddy Bridgewater be his first year, I think once the rhythm comes into play, DJ Moore should go back to where he kind of was last season, where he started off kind of slow and then all of a sudden just started skyrocketing with receiving yards and receptions, and not so much touchdowns, but being the trusted number 1 guy. I mean, right now it's Robbie Anderson. So, so I don't know how you feel about Kenyon Drake and maybe DJ Moore.
Well, I'm loving me DJ Moore because I have Robbie Anderson. I'm loving every week taking advantage because DJ Moore is lining up against the CB1 on every defense.
Mm-hmm.
I love the rapport Teddy Bridge is building, man. It's kind of nice, but
it'll come into its own for sure, man.
Yeah, and look, DJ Moore specifically, individually, DJ Moore, I'm a big fan, man. I really am. I think a lot of us are. I haven't talked sports with anyone that said they didn't like DJ Moore.
Yeah.
He's a stud, and I think things will turn around. I mean, I saw something. I just pulled it up so I can get it right. Through 4 weeks, there's a handful of players that are getting 40% of their team's air yards. On that list is DJ Moore at 43.5%. That's a large chunk. So I see that and I'm like, well, maybe, it's a little bit tough. Teddy Bridge hasn't started in quite some time. I know he had 5 games last year, but new players this year, new system. It's new to DJ Moore, even though we were used to his production under the old regime. It's still a little bit of new all the way around. And then, look, man, DJ Moore is going to have some chances here, but it's going to be a roller coaster ride if you base it on the matchups on the schedule. I mean, Atlanta this week seems like he should pop off. The Bears the following week, and then the Saints after that. Those are two tougher games with Kyle Fuller and Marcus Lattimore. Then he gets the Falcons again, and then the Chiefs, and then the Bucks. He's got a chance to bounce back. All I'll say is this: if you have DJ Moore, I'd look to trade him.
Yes, but do not drop him.
Yeah,
upside's too high. His opportunity is there.
yeah.
I mean, real quick, can I try to answer who those other three are? You said 40% of their target of what was it?
Oh, well, there's a total of 4, 5, 6. It's a tweet from someone. And
okay.
He listed 7 players on this list that have 40% of their team's air yards.
I'll try to guess 3.
Go
if
for
that's
it.
possible.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna say Calvin Ridley's one. No. Wow. Oh, you know what? I'm actually gonna go on a whim here. Is one of them Justin Jefferson?
No, but his teammate Adam Thielen.
I knew it was gonna be one of those guys. Keenan Allen.
No.
That is crazy to me. Okay, let's
all Keenan stuff has been kind of short.
Yeah, but I mean they really haven't been producing a deep ball except for last game. But okay, so go ahead and who are the other guys?
Guy we just talked about, Odell Beckham.
Okay.
And
is Amari Cooper one of them?
He is not.
Is DeAndre Hopkins one of them?
Nope.
Okay. You done with this podcast? Because apparently I don't know anything about football. Wow.
Hey, it's unique, man. I'm not gonna lie. I probably wouldn't have gotten these right either. I would have gotten DK Metcalf right.
I was gonna say DK has got to be one of them.
He's on my squad. I love DK. I would have gotten him right. I would not have gotten some of these other guys, such as Julian Edelman, Terry McLaurin, and Marquise Brown.
Well, you know what's crazy? Name a legitimate second wide receiver on each of those teams.
That's a good point, man. I mean, I don't buy Willie.
N'Keal Harry?
I don't buy Snead, Sims, Harry.
Nope.
So,
which, you know, what's funny, out of all the group, Mark Andrews is one of those that would not have surprised me if he was it over Marquise Brown. So, all right, cool. So you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is a one that I came up with, and it's a question that I would love your answer, because this question, before I sent it to you, took me a lot to come up with because it was hard for me to answer. So, what player who you were 100% on reaching for in fantasy drafts rather, that you didn't get, but it turned out to be for the better?
I love this question. It made me think a little bit. I have two answers for you: Todd Gurley and Julian Edelman. I really thought Atlanta would balance out their offense, kind of feature Todd Gurley, and he would be a comeback player of the year candidate.
Mm-hmm.
After a month, it's such a hard sell on Gurley with that wear and tear and the state of the Falcons team, let alone their offense. We see Brian Hill chipping in a little bit there. He had a, a tough week 4, but he looked pretty good in week 3. So who knows, man? But that offense is flailing overall. Thing is, Gurley's getting between 15 and 21 touches every week, not one game in double digits as far as production in fantasy football. He does have a softer schedule in October, but I'm happy I dodged this bullet, man. I was all in on Todd Gurley in the preseason. I'm not even going to front.
You and everyone else. You and everyone else with the pulse, man.
I really was. I just liked it. Coming back home, he played ball in that state, coming back there. I, I don't know. I thought that it would work. Maybe it still will, but if you've watched those 4 games, he don't look it. That offense doesn't look like the situation either. And then the other guy at wideout, Julian Edelman, I thought he would catch 100 balls this season. Not only was Cam Newton underrated for throwing between the numbers, he actually favored those types of routes in Carolina. There's not a lot of firepower with the Patriots. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't much last year. Same thing this time around. I still see a path to 80 plus catches for Edelman with a few games getting double digit targets. You know how it goes with Jules.
For sure.
Or we knew how it went with Jules with TB12. But I mean, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It'll be Cam in a couple weeks again, but they're gonna have no choice but to milk Jules on a couple of these games where that's all they got going through the air.
Mm-hmm.
So it's looking like a good non-move a month into the season. I mean, he only has one game with double digit fantasy points so far.
Yep.
He's still the best option through the air on that team. But if you include running backs, maybe he's not. Maybe it's James White. After all, I mean, I just don't really want to touch that offense in New England right now. And that's something we haven't said in forever.
I know. Especially the fact that Julian Edelman had a great last season with Tom Brady to show that he is that slot guy. When it is a guy that you want end all be all faith in, he's that guy. Um, Great answers. I one of them. I have two separate ones, but one of them for sure is Todd Gurley. Um, he was one of those guys going into the season where I was thinking, you know, comeback player of the year. Exactly. Like he's gonna show a lot of uh elements that we know Todd Gurley is and has shown. And it ends up being you know, it ends up being a big confusion in the backfield. I mean, it looks like they don't it's so weird. It's I truly believe that I don't wish this at all, but it's something I can kind of feel that's going to happen. Is I do think Dan Quinn's going to be the next coach that's going to get fired. Him and Adam Gase. I mean, it's a lot of times of not playing to your advantages and not playing to your attributes. And I mean, that team is what 0-4 now because of it. It you have a guy who is proven to be a bell cow, and he's not kind of shown that. I mean, people are going to overhype his last game because he's had two quote unquote garbage time touchdowns, but it's still, you know, big oof. But this next one maybe or my first one may be controversial to some people, um, in terms of it being what happened last week. But a player that I was 100% on, that I was saying I need to reach for this guy. Um, it it has to be someone that I want on my roster, and it ends up kind of being a good thing. But we'll see maybe after this week. Is Joe Mixon. People need to not go crazy and think that what he did last week is what they were expecting it to be all along. Like, granted, he was getting drafted in the second round, sometimes the first round. He has had, let me look here, 69 yards the first game, 46 the next game, 49, and then he breaks out 151 against Jacksonville. He's he's gonna have that upside. He's always gonna have that upside. But the way that I look at it, you got Baltimore coming up, you got Indianapolis coming up, Cleveland again, you have Tennessee, and then after their bye, they have Pittsburgh. It's going to be rough for the Bengals. They're going to rely heavily on who will potentially be the future Rookie of the Year candidate, if not winner, Joe Burrow, to kind of figure it out. Tyler Boyd's been great this year. AJ Green is exactly who I thought I was going to be on the offseason. I did not want to reach for him at all. He'd be the opposite of this question. He's someone I 100% was not set on. I did not want AJ Green. But anyway, Joe Mixon is somebody that from this point on, from week 5 on, you're either going to be so pissed off at yourself that you got your second round pick to show some signs of life like he did last week and ends up just completely shitting the bed, or you're going to be happy, because the way that he started off this season, besides one game, has been not second or first round worthy, obviously. So it's kind of that we don't know. Maybe he'll be great the rest of the season. Maybe he won't. So we'll see. But definitely my second one, and I'm sorry, Wes. I know you're gonna hate me for this. Zach Ertz is my second person, and it's. I'm sorry to say it. I know Philly, and he's a massive staple in Philadelphia. I do believe that he's going to be off the team in the next couple of years. I think Dallas Goedert is a great tight end 2 or going to be that tight end 1. But I mean, in my league of record, he got drafted in the late second round. And in terms of fantasy, hasn't produced as we know him to in previous years. I mean, the guy has 1 receiving touchdown so far, 29 targets, 19 receptions. Granted, that a lot has to do with the play calling and Carson Wentz real rocky first couple of games to start the season. I do think they'll bounce back. I do think that once they get not being so unbelievably injured. I mean, I think you have every right to talk about any kind of injuries for more than anybody in the league. But it's the fact that they may bounce back, but I don't know Dallas Goedert's going to be on IR, but I don't know if Zach Ertz is still the Zach Ertz that we know and what people drafted. It seems like this very, very weird kind of like breakup. I don't know. It's weird between Wentz and Ertz. Wentz and Ertz was at one point in time the Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates. Like it was the cream of the crop. You know what I mean? It was, regardless of where you are on the field or who's covering him, they're going to throw the ball to him. Perfect example of this weird thing that's going on between them is week 3 against Cincinnati. Granted, it's the Bengals. They end up tying that game. They went to overtime. He had 10 targets, 7 receptions, 70 yards. For fantasy purposes, the receptions are great, but to only produce 14 points out of 10 targets scares me. And I don't own him in any leagues, but it's the fact that I mean, as a Philly fan, for you, do you agree? I'm assuming you probably don't, but for terms of fantasy and fantasy owners, do you kind of see that whole like, you know, did it kind of turn out for the better in terms of him getting drafted somewhere in that late two, early third round mix?
I'm totally off on Zach Ertz. And
Wow.
the Eagles are without 7 of their 9 top targets that they had in the offseason entering the season.
Yep.
Their top 7 of 9, meaning Zach Ertz is not getting the job done as one of those other 2 guys that's actually on the field. I don't like what I see. I don't know if Zach Ertz is good in 2020. It sure doesn't look like it. I will say, for fantasy purposes, after 4 games, he belongs in this category 100%. Absolutely. I do look ahead at the schedule. If you're trying to look, you look at guys now after 4 games and you evaluate, and then you kind of look ahead at the schedule, see how it matches their skill set and situation. The next 2 games, they're tough. Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Oy.
But I will say, if you have another tight end that you're willing to stream, take a flyer on in weeks 5 and 6, perfect time to buy low on Zach Ertz.
I agree.
Dallas Goedert will be back later in the season. Alshon Jeffrey's on the mend. Deshaun Jackson will be back as well. So once those other receivers are back in the lineup, life's going to be easier for Ertz again. Even if I don't think he can get you any yak, Ertz is wherever Ertz catches the ball, that's where he's dropping. That's just a fact. He's not a playmaker. He runs routes well, but teams are bracketing him. They're bumping him at the line. They're kind of shading the safety over because the Eagles lack the weapons right now. And yeah, that situation isn't great the next 2 weeks, but it's the perfect buy low time. I'm gonna read you the schedule as to why. Giants, Cowboys, bye. Giants, Browns, Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Cardinals, and they finish with Cowboys and Washington. That is a powder puff schedule for a tight end. So
absolutely.
After 4 games, I agree. Zach Ertz ain't living up to the bill. If you have him on your roster right now, gut it out 2 more weeks. If you don't have him on your roster, I'd say buy low. You probably can get away with it right now, and someone's going to panic because they're pissed off at Zach Ertz, and they should be. So that's how I see it, man.
So for real quick to go back on that. So you're more so going off the fact of scheduling rather than the fact that Alshon Jeffrey's coming back. Jalen Reagor is going to figure out his injury soon. Dallas Goedert is going to come back. So you're more in the terms of like being comfortable with starting him. You're favoring more towards the fact of easier schedule than cluttered targets.
Yeah, sometimes if you're, like I said, the top 7 of 9 are out, but most of them will come back at some point. Everyone knows Ertz set a tight end record 2 years ago for receptions in a season, and part of why not only Carson Wentz is going through this rocky road, the Eagles' offense, the injuries, yes, but Zach Ertz, he's not getting involved. He's on the decline. A lot of Eagles fans believe that. I'm one of them. And I think adding those other pieces back to the offense will boost Zach Ertz's numbers in fantasy because he is that most reliable player in Carson Wentz's mind. Right now, he's showing to Greg Ward. No one knows the other guys.
Yeah, the random generated name guy.
Exactly. I do, but I'm not here to bore people with Philly all day. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I think his arrow points up after 2 weeks, and I don't think he's an elite tight end in the game. I don't think he's going to turn his season around to be elite in fantasy either. But I think he'll be serviceable and productive to where you won't have to bench him.
I agree.
All right, man. Let's keep the chains moving. All right. Which QB? Because I bring this question up here. A lot of people were stoked on Aaron Rodgers. He's on a bye week, as
Mm-hmm.
is Matthew Stafford, who's
Mm-hmm.
probably on most rosters too. Which QB rostered in under 50% of Yahoo leagues is the best pickup for the week, in your opinion, between Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers, and Daniel Jones?
Oh man, see this is a hard one because I'm looking right now at three other guys that I would personally stream over them, but that's what makes this question so great. So you got Kirk Cousins at Seattle, Phillip Rivers at Cleveland, and Daniel Jones, Dallas, which it seems as if you're kind of using your intuition on the last couple of weeks, it would be whoever uh, Dallas is playing against. You kind of want to play against. You want to play the defense, or you want to play on the opposite side of that spectrum. So you're going, oh, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is gonna be great against Dallas. It's gonna be a shootout, right? I just I don't want anything to do with Daniel Jones. I don't want anything to do with Evan Ingram. I don't want anything to do with Jared Slayton. I don't want anything to do with obviously Sterling Shepard and anything with the backfield. I think this is the one game where Dallas is going to look like they're just completely out of their own with everybody else behind them kind of thing because they're playing the New York Giants. So I will definitely say that as my last. My big thing with Phillip Rivers, who I think is playing actually very, very, very good this year. Um, can maybe be one of those people that's up for candidacy for, uh, you know,
Comeback.
comeback player of the year because of how poor he played. I mean, to take it lightly, how poorly he played last year. But, the thing is, this might be the first game where we see how legitimate the offense is for the Colts because they've been steamrolling people. I mean, steamrolling people to the point where, their offense hasn't even been really giving any kind of show because, you know, they've been stealing their defense is the real deal this year. I mean, the real deal. If not the best, top two, if not top three. The whole thing is ever since week one against the shootout between Jacksonville, Phillip Rivers has attempted which that game he attempted 46 passes. He's had 25, 21, and 29 attempts. So obviously it's something to where they know that if they're ahead, they're going to highly rely on their running game and their defense and milking the clock, yada, yada, yada. So if you as a fantasy owner truly believe that if you think the Cleveland Browns and the Colts are going to be like the Cowboys and Browns last week, and it's going to be the shootout, and Baker's going to have a good game. That means Philip Rivers is going to have a good game. Do it because obviously all signs are pointing to go and pick up Philip Rivers. He's only he's only rostered in I think 20% of leagues on the Yahoo. So maybe that comes with reason, but at the same time, T.Y. Hilton hasn't been showing anything of greatness as we used to know him as. And he loves Mo Ali Cox. He loves we haven't seen really much of Jack Doyle, but I think it's gonna there be a run team, a run first team. So that gives Naeem Hines a lot of boosts and everything. But Philip Rivers is not going to be that guy that puts up unbelievable amounts of fantasy points and production. He's just a guy that gets by. So that's why I'm going to say what I believe is going to be a legitimate shootout on Sunday night. I will go with Kirk Cousins against Seattle. Seattle is a team that you want to play against for every personnel on offense. You want to play your running back. You want to play your wide receiver. Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen should go nuclear this week. I mean, they should be both of them within the top 10 for production, if not the top 5 this week, going off the fact of what Seattle has done the previous weeks, especially since Jamal Adams is not going to be active. So there's no way that the way that you think about it is that if I think Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are going to have this miraculous game, that doesn't equate to Kirk Cousins throwing the ball, X amount of times, but having 280 something yards and maybe 3 touchdowns. I think Dalvin Cook obviously is going to have a great game, but I think he will have a great game in the passing, and in the receiving end of his attributes. So I would for sure say, Kirk Cousins has a very, very high ceiling, and I don't think he's rostered in many leagues. I think he's kind of going at 29%. I mean, he's a guy that, don't look at his second week where he only had 1.5 for fantasy. That's what you don't want. But keep in mind, it was against the Colts. The Colts are the real deal defense. It's a defense if you can avoid, you want to avoid them this year for majority of personnel on the offensive side. But I do think we'll see more towards the Green Bay side where he played them 22 and 3/4 points. 25 attempts, 19 completions, 259 yards. He's in that ballpark of 2 touchdowns and 250 plus ish yards. So if he's available, which he for sure as hell better be, I would for sure stream him over the other 2. I don't know how you feel about it though.
100% agree with Kirk Cousins. A lot of what you said, I agree with. I think it's evident. He has more touchdowns than the other 2 guys with 6. He has the 2 best receivers of these 3 teams. He
I 100% agree.
The best established veteran in Adam Thielen. Rivers doesn't have that. Jones doesn't have that. And he has the best potential. The rookie, Justin Jefferson. The other 2 teams, they just don't have that right now. Captain Kirk also throwing 8.8 yards per attempt. And he has a luxury that the other 2 don't have as well. Play action with Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm.
The Seahawks, right now they're giving up the second most points to quarterbacks in September. Only Atlanta has given out more. I mean, that's just not great if you're a fan of those defenses.
Yep.
And with that, Seattle allows the most fantasy points to wide receivers, a good thing for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense. And the Seahawks, they just sell out on the run. So they do limit the running backs to the 4th fewest points so far. And tight ends, they contain them to the 2nd fewest. So Cousins going to have several big play opportunities down the field. You already mentioned Cook being involved. That's absolutely going to happen. A shift when I look at and think about Phillip Rivers over here at Cleveland, I see what some other quarterbacks have done. Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow each tossed 3 TDs against the Browns. Dwayne Haskins, I know he just got benched. He threw a couple, but committed 4 turnovers in that game. Last week, Dak Prescott chucked it for 502 and 4 touchdowns with 2 turnovers. A lot of that production, though, playing from behind in the 4th quarter. And then, look, as for Rivers and the Colts, T.Y. Hilton still seeking his first touchdown with Rivers. Him and Zach Pascal, they haven't reached 60 yards receiving this season in a game. This team is still without Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman. The running backs and tight ends all combined for 6 catches last week. Not a lot of productivity going on there. On top of that, since playing from behind in week 1, as you mentioned, I know you mentioned the attempts. I find this to be another negative. Rivers hasn't completed more than 19 passes and only has 1 touchdown in each game.
Yep.
This could be a spot to get right, to get things going. I mean, the Browns do allow 31.5 points per game. So there's worse options if you're looking at opportunity. I don't want any part of that Colts offense. I don't think Rivers is playing up to par. He doesn't have the weapons that are playing up to par. I think Jonathan Taylor's been slow to transition so far. And I will agree with you, just like I told my buddy Drew on our last episode. I get it. After 4 weeks, you can only grade on who these teams are playing. I think the
Mm-hmm.
Colts defense is going to be good. I think they've played some weak offenses, though, in the first month. So, I mean, we'll see if the Colts can keep up with the Browns this week. And
Right.
and I don't know. I don't think Rivers is the Chargers Rivers that can get you 300 yards, 400 yards.
Yeah.
I don't see that guy anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
then the last one here, Daniel Jones at Dallas. Yeah, it's another good matchup. That's why I threw these three up here, man. But the Giants are going to be one dimensional all year, which can be great for your quarterback, but it can be absolutely the worst thing at the same time. I mean, they're without Saquon Barkley, of course. No matter how hard they try to catch up Devontae Freeman, that O line just isn't cutting it. They're without Sterling Shepard. Golden Tate hasn't gotten to 50 yards in a game yet. Darius Slayton has 9 catches in the past 3 games. If Evan Ingram steps up in the next month, he does have favorable matchups. That would be a welcome boost, but that's a big if. We haven't seen this guy reach that so-called potential. It's so hard to bet on the Giants offense right now. I don't want to bet on Daniel Jones. Give me Kirk Cousins out of these three easily all day, dude.
By a mile. And real quick, if it helps anyone out there as well, people that weren't on this list for the sake of it being a conversation, if you were seriously considering somebody to stream that's under 50% owned, please look for Teddy Bridgewater against Atlanta. You know that defense is very soft. You know Teddy Bridgewater is going to air it out, whether it's Mike Davis, which only helps him out, or Robbie Anderson or whatever. He's going to have maybe someone close to Teddy Bridgewater last week, where he threw it 276 yards and 2 touchdowns and had a pretty damn good rushing touchdown in there as well. And don't be afraid to try to reach and start. I just had him right here. Justin Herbert against New Orleans. I mean, granted, it's New Orleans. He's only rostered in 33% of leagues, but it's New Orleans. New Orleans obviously knows that Marshawn Lattimore will shut down probably Keenan Allen, but if they get Mike Williams back, it's only going to be great for them. They're not going to want to run the ball against New Orleans because they're not going to really have the opportunity to get ahead with Alvin Kamara and Drew Brees throwing the ball 3.5 yards. They're going to be behind. They're going to throw the ball. Justin Herbert is going to have another game that I believe like he has had the first and his third game against Tampa Bay. Don't be afraid to start him. I would start him if I didn't have Dak Prescott in both of my leagues and Kyler Murray in the other. Like it should be a damn good game. So just Herbert.
Man, good stuff. I like it. All right, bring it on.
Okay, so it seems like we have the last question here. This is kind of going off of it's going to have a little bit of highlights of what we said on the last question, but it goes a little bit more thorough because myself and I know a lot of other people are kind of having questions about the Colts offense. So I'm going to say rate the offensive side of the ball for the Colts 1 through 5 for the remainder of the season.
All right. Then we shall do that. Well, Indy plays the Browns and the Bengals. Then they head into the week 7 bye. You got to look at everything. Since getting surprised in week 1, mentioning this again by the Jaguars, the defense, as you keep saying, man, as everyone keeps telling me, they paved the way for 3 wins in a row. Defense holding opponents to 11, 7, and 11 again. They've done what they were expected to do, I think. Go 3-1 in the first month. I got to say, though, their offense has been anything but impressive to me. And I guess they could be the biggest pretender with a winning record when you consider they played the Jaguars, Vikings, Jets, and Bears. First on my list as the best fantasy asset, Jonathan Taylor. Not because he's my favorite back in this draft class. He's clearly still transitioning despite a top shelf O line, only 3.8 yards per carry so far at supposedly a plug and play position. That bothers me because running back's my favorite position. It's not so easy, it's not so plug and play. In fact, you can check out the last episode. I kind of went off on all these rookie running backs because I don't think they're doing their part. I get the short season and all, but it's supposed to be plug and play to most of you. So that's why I'm kind of throwing a dig there. And Taylor's not really involved through the air, not yet at least. He's at the top though because the offense is predicated on the ground and they want to be a physical team with their linemen and improved defense, a veteran quarterback that they don't want to put out there too much. That's the identity they want and probably the only way they can win games in my opinion. Number 2, for opportunity alone, it's got to be the quarterback. So Phillip Rivers completing 72% right now with a 4-3 TD to INT ratio. That's not too pretty. I expect a rocky road, though, to continue. You know, the Bears D would hold him under 70%. They did. He's only completed more than 19 passes when playing from behind in the opener. I mean, I was low on Rivers coming into the season, but still had them making the postseason because of some of all their parts, as we're discussing here today.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a guy you want to start in shallow leagues, though. 8-team, 10-team leagues. Just don't. You might not have a choice in bigger leagues, and I get it, where you need a bench QB or even worse, a second QB in 2 QB leagues. That's just tough. But I do have Rivers at 2 because of the position. Third, I put Nyheim Hines. It just reeks of inconsistency. It's the total spell back that you play on pass downs. 2 games with 40 receiving yards, and then 2 games in the single digits. That's the inconsistency I'm talking about. He does have 7 or more carries in 3 of the 4 games. It gives him a floor of 12 touches. It's kind of nice in an RB2 on a team. I get that. So he'll have a high floor when it comes to opportunity. But again, he's third on this list for now because of the inconsistencies. But if the Colts D can't play as well as they have been, against some of the better teams coming up, then Nyheim Hines can move up this list if they're playing more catch up because he'd be the main beneficiary. Fourth, well, it's the number 1 receiver, T.Y. Hilton. Whether that's because he can still play or not remains to be seen in 2020. He just hasn't clicked with Rivers. Under 60 yards in every game, still seeking his first touchdown. He's still the number 1 receiver, perhaps by default, though, where Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman went down. Hilton's role, it has him on this list here, and he has a good matchup on paper against Cleveland. But looking ahead, it's hard to say that he can produce, man. It's hard to say T.Y. Hilton is a starting caliber player in fantasy football. You look at that schedule, I don't know if he can put together back-to-back weeks where you're happy and where you're happy starting him.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd have to fall from behind, man. Kind of like what I said about Nyheim Hines. 14-team leagues, you may need to hold on to Hilton. I'd understand it. 12, I wouldn't bother. And then last on this list would be whoever you think emerges at the tight end position. I mean, Jack Doyle was supposed to get a big boost with the addition of Rivers. He has 4 catches on 7 targets in 3 games, and he missed a game. His chance to be fantasy relevant is probably come and gone. That's how I see it. Mo Alley Cox, the other tight end, he flashed week 2, 111 yards, and he caught a TD in the past 2 games. There's a chance he could be their most productive tight end, even if he's only touchdown dependent. But it does seem like they're looking his way in the red zone. The last guy, Trey Burton, just made his debut. He went 2 for 16. I actually pointed him out as a deep sleeper in the offseason, laugh or not, before his calf injury landed him on IR to start the year. It's because of the familiarity he has with head coach Frank Reich. They were together in Philadelphia during that Super Bowl run. Last week, you check out the snap counts. Doyle, He led with 62%. Cox, 46. Burton actually played 50. I'm not saying I'm too fond on this position, man. I'm not. It's fifth on this list because you would think someone can emerge. It can't just be Jonathan Taylor and hoping T.Y. Hilton does something. There's got to be someone else. And you made me pick five. So I'm gonna say
It's a tough one.
yeah. So the fifth guy is whoever emerges at tight end. It looks like it's gonna be Mo Alley Cox because of the red zone looks.
Yep.
If he may be gone already because of scarcity of the tight end position, I would actually give the edge to Burton over Doyle as far as who's going to get more targets.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I did my own personal list. I think you'd be real dumb if you didn't put Jonathan Taylor on the top of any of yours or anyone's. You know, just like you said, he's going to come into his own. He's going to find a rhythm. He was literally given the starting job because Marlon Mack is out for the season, which I thought going into the season he was going to have a great year. And don't forget, before he went out on his injury, was having a great game. Just exactly what I thought he was going to have. So it sucks. So for sure, I have Jonathan Taylor. Number two, I actually have Nyheim Hines because that potential that if anytime Jonathan Taylor goes out, he's going to have that week one production. Like, end of story. He's going to have that week one production he had right when Marlon Mack went out. Number three, I do not have Phillip Rivers. So number three, I actually have Mo Alley Cox. What is Phillip Rivers' number one target besides the running back? Will always be the tight end.
Not Jack Doyle.
What's that?
I said not Jack Doyle.
Not Jack Doyle and not Trey Burton. He needs a guy who is physical, especially in the red zone. He needs a guy that can go 5 yards, turn around, grab the ball, and start trucking fools, just like Antonio Gates did for him, just like even Hunter Henry did sometimes. But Hunter Henry was more the athletic down the field runner. But Mo Alley Cox is that physical guy, especially in the red zone. When he grabs that ball and he starts turning, he's going to make his way to the pay dirt. Like he's going to be that guy that I will feel confident saying, if he's available in your leagues, pick him up. If he scored in 2 weeks so far, back-to-back weeks, and he had an over 100-yard game, it should tell you that Rivers is trusting him, especially since T.Y. Hilton is not the 1,400-yard T.Y. Hilton that we know. So besides that, I have T.Y. Hilton as number 4, only because of his ceiling. It's the fact that we haven't seen T.Y. Hilton be T.Y. Hilton. But then again, I don't think we've really had opportunities to be seeing T.Y. Hilton be T.Y. Hilton. They've played shitty teams. And I still think that the Colts are going to finish, for at least fantasy purposes, the number one defense on the league because of scheduling and how good I think their defense actually is going to be. Losing Darius Leonard and him kind of going back and forth is kind of being hard. But, I think the more and more games that it's going to be the Colts having to do a shootout is going to be a hopeful reemergence of T.Y. Hilton. I mean, they've got Cleveland next week. They got Cincinnati. That's going to be a great game for him to potentially break out. They have a bye. Then they have Detroit. That's going to be a good game. And then they have Baltimore. I don't know if it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a defensive war. And then they have Tennessee, Green Bay, Tennessee, Houston. It's going to be, we'll see. I have high hopes. I actually dropped him in a 12-team league and ended up picking him up again. I'm still kind of in that, back and forth range of definitely not starting him. But if he has a game where he breaks out for 25 fantasy points, I'm not going to start him the next week. I need to see trends, especially against guys. a guy who's older and a guy who has had a lot of histories of injuries. So he's my number 4. My number 5 might surprise you, and it might surprise a lot of people. It's not Phillip Rivers. It's actually Jordan Wilkins. So the reason why I say that, besides the fact of him being, he's a guy that he's going to inherit a full-blown backfield if something happens to Jonathan Taylor, besides him sharing it with Nyheim Hines. He's going to inherit way more time and opportunities, and that's what I obviously look for. But last season, he showed somewhat of a spark of his potential ability. He's never gotten the ability to show it completely, but obviously the pecking order is going to always be Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Wilkins. But this last 3 games, he's gotten opportunities. He's had 9 attempts in 3 straight games, which, granted, 40 yards, 39 yards, 15 yards, but it's game script and stuff like that. But it's more so the fact that Nyheim Hines has to be up there, right? Obviously, he's that second guy. But if something were to happen to one of those 2 guys, someone else is going to have to be a 3-down back or fill a role that's heavily missed. We know Reich likes to run the ball, and he runs it damn well. And he loves to have, especially with Phillip Rivers now, he loves to throw the ball to his running back. So I say don't have to roster him for sure yet. But if I'm grading those guys in terms of fantasy for potential or for their actual skill set, I would say Jordan Wilkins is kind of an all right, safe number 5. Phillip Rivers scares me, man. He's a guy that, I mean, he might not get double-digit interceptions this year, but is he going to get double-digit touchdowns this year? You don't know. Is he going to eclipse 3,200 passing yards this season? I don't know. We don't know. So I want to go heavily on the backfield. If I don't trust Phillip Rivers, I don't really want to go and try to seek out, Zach Pascal and Pittman and stuff like that. But if it's not a tight end and if it's not a running back, I don't really want it. That's just me.
I think you just helped out a lot of the diehards right now. Jordan Wilkins, he's definitely on the radar. You're right. He's been involved. I put him on my watch list a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna do it. You know how I do. My teams are stacked, bro. But yeah. All right, man. Before we cut out, I got one. I know it was a pick-6, but now let's kick this extra point in. Just off top of the dome here.
Okay.
I'm looking at this week 5 schedule, and I see one game where I highly question if I'd play any offensive player in fantasy football in this game coming up again. Denver Broncos at New England Patriots.
Oh, man. That's a rough one.
If you had to pick one player in this game that you had to start, who would it be?
Oh, man. It sucks because one of the running backs, one of the 11 running backs in the New England backfield is going to have a good game. I think it's Damian Harris. I actually waiver wire picked him up because all the hype that was going on in the offseason saying, oh, yeah, the way he's been dominating. And I went away from him because of Cam. But, I mean, if Cam's not going to play this game, you can say Julian Edelman. But you know what? I'm going to go on kind of a whim here. Okay. And this is my answer comes in 2 parts because it's contingent on one thing. It's contingent on who's starting for the Denver Broncos in terms of quarterback. Is it going to be Is it going to be Ripon? It sounded like Jeff Driscoll rather was going to start. I don't know. Because I'm leaning towards Tim Patrick, which is a huge sleeper on waiver wires. I think he's scored in 3 straight games, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's at least up there of being quite So 2 games in a row he scored twice last season, went back to back 2 games in a row. Last game he had 7 targets for 6 receptions, 113 yards. I want to say Tim Patrick for sure, but that is only contingent on who is starting. I think if I were to for surely say who I would start is Nick Folk. No, I'm joking. Is going to be I would say Melvin Gordon. What Clyde Edwards-Helaire did last week against them, seemed like it was Clyde. Clyde is being Clyde. I think he's a great running back, but it showed somewhat of weakness on the defensive side of the ball for New England. I mean, they just lost Stephon Gilmore, so obviously they're going to be more adamant about passing the ball. But who's passing the ball? Are you really going to trust Ripon? Are you really going to trust are you really going to trust Jeff Driscoll? I'm not. I'm good. So I think the guy who's going to be running the ball a lot, granted, they think they might get total brain fart right now.
Philip Lindsay's back.
Thank you, Philip Lindsay. I think they're going to get Philip Lindsay's back. So it's going to be kind of maybe that 70-30 backfield that we are assuming it to be. But anytime I know a quarterback who's not great is starting, it's always good to look at the safety valve guys, and it's going to be Melvin Gordon. It might be Philip Lindsay. Same exact thing with the New England backfield. Do not be afraid. If you're in a deep league and you are desperate, do not be afraid to stream James White. I mean, he's a guy that always comes through as a safety valve. And if it's going to be Hoyer, I guess go for it. But that's a rough question, man. I hate you for that question. I think my answer would be Melvin Gordon.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I think the safest pick is Melvin Gordon. Thing is, I think it's going to bust. Man, I don't like Denver's offense at all in this game. Not that I love New England's either, dude. Don't get it twisted. I just put it this way. I also picked up Damian Harris, and I'm starting him this week.
If you have the opportunity, man, do it.
That
100% do it.
And me starting him had nothing to do with this question. I just brought it up because I looked at the week 5 schedule and I'm like, wait, that game, would I start anybody?
That's a game that it's going to be one of those games that when you're watching Red Zone on Sunday, you're going to be like, oh shit. I haven't seen a single play from New England and Denver.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, they're not going to show a single red zone play in Denver and New England. It's going to be ridiculous.
It is. I added that one too. Especially, look, Denver and New England, they're 9-10 right now against the run. So I don't think any offense is going to come easy for any team, especially with their backup quarterbacks on both teams. We don't know if their QB2s or their QB3s are playing for either team. It's crazy.
It's nuts. Real quick, if you don't mind, I mentioned this before the show. I would like for you to rate this trade.
Oh, all right.
So this is a 10-team league, PPR. I already have Kyler, Dalvin Cook, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Calvin Ridley, Hayden Hurst, and Tonian, which I picked up on my wires, Jamison Crowder, and on my bench I have DJ Moore, AJ Brown, Julian Edelman. So I want you to rate this because this is a trade that just went through this morning. So I ended up trading away Jonathan Taylor, who I ended up getting in a trade before. I ended up trading away Jonathan Taylor and Robert Woods, and I received Nyheim Hines and DK Metcalf. So I have my wide receiver 1 and 2 is Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, and my running backs are Dalvin Cook and Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Nyheim Hines on my bench.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I think it's all right. So if I just look at the players, Jonathan Taylor and Robert Woods for Nyheim Hines and DK Metcalf, I like what you got more, Hines and Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer that. I think that's because of the high end of DK Metcalf is I think DK's ceiling is higher, substantially higher than Robert Woods' ceiling.
I could agree with that.
I think we could see a 200-yard game this season from DK Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at the Colts running backs involved in this trade. The gap, I think, is smaller between the running backs. So
right. That was my thing with it is, Jonathan Taylor will always have that upside, but so will Nyheim Hines. He's a screen away, a running back screen away from having a 40-point game. He's a guy that can take it to the house. Jonathan Taylor is going to be that bell cow, but Nyheim Hines will always, especially if something happens to Jonathan Taylor, will always have that upside. He's not somebody I'm going to start. I'm never going to start him over Dalvin Cook and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but maybe he's a flex candidate, So I was mainly looking at it as the way that I look at it, and I hope this can land, because you can ask West. I try to make the best trades. I try to make trades make sense. I try to look at them in a different realm, a business way of looking at it. But the way I'm looking at it is DK Metcalf, in my opinion, is more valuable than Jonathan Taylor and Robert Woods right now. Russ is cooking. Okay. Granted, DK Metcalf in all of his games, 4 straight games, he's only had 4 receptions. But he's had 8 targets, 6 targets, 8 targets, and then 6 targets. But out of all 4 of those reception games, he's had 95 yards, 92 yards, 110 yards, 106 yards, and he scored in his first 3 games. So obviously, it has nothing to do. I mean, if you look at it, for most wide receivers, you go, that's not enough volume. 4 receptions, but he's having the targets. Chris Carson's doing great running the ball. But as long as he's staying this unbelievable threat, the score he did in week 2 on Stephon Gilmore, the reigning defensive player of the year, shows you exactly his ceiling. It's just game script. So, he's got Minnesota. I mean, if you don't think he's going to get in that range of 25 to 28 fantasy points, then I don't know. And he's got a bye. Then he's got Arizona, then San Francisco, who does not have Richard Sherman. And then he's got Buffalo, which is going to be a shootout. Then he's got the Rams, which the Rams, you got the number 1 defender on their side of the ball that's not named Aaron Donald, is going to be shadowing probably Tyler Lockett. I don't know if they're going to want to put Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf. He's too big and physical. So, and then after that, he's got Arizona again, Philadelphia, Giants, Jets, Washington, the Rams, and San Francisco again. This guy might legitimately finish as the number 3 wide receiver on the year, potentially. I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't know. So it's a trade that I definitely loved. When he agreed to it, I said, "Okay, man, are you sure? Okay, cool. Put it through."
Awesome trade. Preach, man. These guys know, the diehards know. I am sky high on DK Metcalf.
Yep.
After I rewatched his 2019, he had over 900 yards. I thought he left over 300 yards on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I understood it. Rookie, you gotta get on the same page with Russ. I get it. So it wasn't really a knock when I went back, looked, and kind of said that. It was a put the league on notice. This guy is a monster. They need to come up with a football version of Space Jam, because you remember that's DK Metcalf, man.
Bro, it really helps the fact that they're legitimately letting Russ cook.
You,
And that guy is cooking.
you have to pay attention to Russ, his mobility. You have to pay attention to Chris Carson. You have to pay attention to Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf is not going to slow down individually because of his situation, because of his schedule, because of his quarterback, etc. So I love the trade. And you can even come around, and since you're starting DK and Ridley, and you got so much ammo, DJ Moore, AJ Brown, Julian Edelman, you can get another back if you want another back, but you're already starting Dalvin Cook and CEH.
Mm-hmm.
Woo.
3-1 in that league. I lost by 5 points when I got that loss.
Maybe see tight end. I don't know. You got Hurst and Tanyan right now. Maybe try to flip. I don't know. You're the guy that makes more trades than anyone I've ever.
We'll see, man. I mean, this season's been great so far, and I can't wait to maybe talk again at the next quarter mark. I mean, this season might not last a couple more games, but it might also be one of the best football seasons we've had ever. So we'll see, man.
All right, diehards, thanks for listening. Hopefully we help you win a couple games this week. If you're in multiple leagues, good luck to your fantasy teams. Good luck to your favorite teams. I know we all can't win, but if you listen to this, I'm rooting for you, unless you're playing me or my Eagles.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
We'll see you, diehards.
Later, guys.
Oh my gosh.
What happened?
I'm scared right now. I'm getting the spinning wheel on my mouse when I'm trying to stop the recording. It's no big deal. I can cut whatever out, but I want this spinning wheel to go away. There, it went away.
Okay. I'm not going to lie, dude. For the last 30 minutes, I have not seen like you.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
I like the whatchamacallit, the screen is black. Like I don't see you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I was just pretending that I saw you this whole time.
That's weird. I see you and me here. That's
Well, regardless, felt good, man. It was a good conversations, man. Good topics for fantasy and for obviously like for just like regular football conversations, you know.
Did you have fun?
Fuck yeah. I wish I can get paid to talk about football. I wish. So yeah, man. And literally anytime you need me, just text me.